This video is sponsored by Factor 75. Get fresh, ready-made meals delivered to your doorstep when you sign up with Factor. Their menus are updated weekly. They have seafood, veggie, and keto options if that's what you're looking for. Check my link in the description below and use code FACTORSE10507 for 60% off your first box. Alrighty, guys. Have you ever heard of Pastor Shane Vaughn? He's not somebody who I've really taken a lot of time to do some digging into, but there are some statements he's made recently that I think are kind of important to go over. Republicans are really, really angry that they do not have all the seats in the Senate, and he has some solutions that can get more seats in the Senate. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. This one is from Diamond Katsi. My first fan art. Have a frosty slime Suris for a frosty season. There are two pieces here, one with the winter filter over, and then another without it. And I think both look fantastic. The next one we have is terrifying because it's from Sylvia Silica, of course. Surisism takes real good care of those they fancy. You know, the more I see pictures of Surisism, I have to ask myself, especially with that tail holding the other one, what those fangs do, though.
1999, the volcanic eruption started here.
Okay. Anyways, the next one we have here is a little bit different. This one is from Sarah Serantane? I'm probably saying it wrong. They said, it took my sweet time on this one, but here we go again. We have a witch Suris here with the Neko slime coming out of the bottle, which you should never, ever do, but they're doing it anyway. And you know what? I love the hair texture. I think that is my favorite part about this, I think, is the way that you did the hair. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it in the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into things after you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon. Pastor Shane Vaughn. He wants an electoral college to be put in at the state level. Let's go ahead and hear why.
Not defeat the population centers without the electoral college. Now, I said all that to say, let's go to Georgia.
Yeah.
Last week on Tuesday night, we were all watching. Mm-hmm. And what is Georgia? From top to bottom, across the whole thing, what color is Georgia? Why? It's all red, is it not? The entire state is conservatives.
Yeah, except for the places where, you know, people actually live. If you want places in Georgia that are not overly conservative, might I introduce you, perhaps, to Marietta with its mixed population, Atlanta with its population that is incredibly mixed, especially because of the film industry that happens to be there. Could I introduce you to, say, Savannah, Georgia? As somebody who lives in Georgia, I can direct you to the population centers in here where people actually fucking live. It should be noted to everybody that land does not vote. Square footage does not vote.
All rushing to the polls. They came to the polls that day and blew the numbers out the water. And they were winning their state. They were turning their state in the right direction until they hit that blue area called Atlanta, Georgia. And now, good try, all you great citizens of Georgia. Thank you for coming to the polls, but you have a problem. Your voice doesn't matter because you don't have the majority of the population.
Yeah, that's how democracy works. Yes, if more people want a thing and fewer people want the thing than the people who have the more people, they get the more votes. That's how voting works.
So therefore, you really shouldn't have even shown up to vote.
You're right. Hey, conservatives, just listen to him. Listen to him. Listen to everything he just said. You don't need to show up to vote. I'm fine with that.
Because we're going to stop you in the population centers. And I looked across that state and I said, you know what? Everyone in that state is a conservative.
Is Atlanta not in the state? Is Atlanta not part of Georgia? Wait a minute. So if 40% of Georgia is conservative and 60% of Georgia lives in Marietta, Atlanta, Savannah, Valdosta, do we just not count those people?
Except for those 2 blue dots. And that's when it hit me like a stroke of genius.
To fuck with elections.
That's what the founding fathers feared for the nation. But what they feared for the nation is happening in the states. The office of a senator is just like the office of the president. It is a statewide campaign. It is statewide. Therefore, I am of the opinion that the only way to save the Senate in the United States of America is that the Senate election should also be done by the Electoral College of a state. We cannot.
I understand that the more people vote, the more likely it is that progressive ideas come through because they are just, quite frankly, more popular in the population. But at the same time, I'm perfectly fine making a joke at conservatives' expense. Always will be. Always will be. If your vote is against human rights, then I am perfectly fine minimizing the importance of your vote. He has an awful voice and an awful microphone. It's very weird. I feel like while I could approach this from, like, actually the founding fathers wanted X, Y, and Z, as somebody who doesn't give a flying crap about the Constitution, I also don't give a flying crap about what the founding fathers wanted, because they're dead. They don't have to live here anymore. I don't care about them. I don't. I care about living, breathing people and the way that their lives are affected today. A majority of them in the States are progressive, like across the United States. Neoliberalism is the philosophy of the United States. Simple as that. It's not as far left as I would like it to be, but it's certainly not as far to the right as I would fear it could be. The reason, my guy, that all of Georgia looks as red as it does is because we divided our districts. We gerrymandered our districts to make them look a certain way. This is the reason why our House is so disproportionately conservative, especially letting in people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. The whole reason that Georgia looks as red as it does when you look at a map is because that's arbitrarily where those lines got divided. But I hate to tell you this over and over, Shane. Land doesn't vote. Land does not matter. Dirt does not get a say in democracy. People do. And as the name would imply it, the population centers happen to have more people. Now, why are the population centers more liberal? Because the more exposed you are to other people and other ideas, the more liberal you get. You become more moderate. You become less of a bigot. Think about it. If you've got 10 white guys who hate gays and blacks in a room together and they never leave that room, what happens in 10 years? Well, I mean, nobody lives because you didn't give them any top ramen to eat because Lord knows they don't know how to cook. But let's pretend that they had manna and quail and they are in that room and they somehow manage to survive for 10 years. What happens? What character development happens when they leave the room? They're still bigots. They still hate black people. They still are wondering why their wives aren't cooking for them. And they still do not like the gays. If you take those 10 people and you cut them in half, not with a saw, but like you take 5 of them and you keep them in the room for 10 years. But then you take the other 5 of them and you put them in a city. Let's throw them in New York. Why not? What happens when you put them in that city? Those 5 people in the city, they get a character arc. They get to meet people of all walks of life. They're going to meet gay people. They're going to meet drag queens. They're going to meet trans people. They're going to meet people who are black. They're going to meet people who are Jewish. They're going to meet people who they didn't know even could exist. Yes, Native Americans are still alive. We didn't wipe them all out. They were very surprised when they discovered that. And yes, some of them might get stabbed. It is New York after all. But they go there and they live among people. And they start talking with those other people from different walks of life. And they start to learn about them, understand them. Those people become less bigoted because they are around other people from other walks of life. Education is less useful at converting people away from bigotry than mere exposure. Interacting with people different than you will teach you more about those people than any classroom could. So, what happens when you have the population centers basically cut off from voting because you gerrymander it so thoroughly using an electoral college? Making it to where every area in Georgia has a couple of representative voters. Who those representatives are, I don't fucking know. But a couple of representative voters. And then, Atlanta might get a couple of representative voters as well. If you do it that way, then you are not accurately representing the population. You are now just representing land mass. Land mass does not vote. But we're not done with Shane, and nor is Shane done with us. Unfortunately, Shane has more opinions. He wants the 17th Amendment taken away. Why does he want that? We can go ahead and take a look at the 17th Amendment real quick to see what it is. The 17th Amendment says that the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and then each senator will have 1 vote. So what does he think about that? Well, let's take a look.
And what we must do is repeal 17. Otherwise, you're going to have a blue House and a blue Senate. And ladies and gentlemen, you cannot govern that way. I knew it. When I saw Herschel Walker lose that election, and I saw a massive turnout of red all over that state. Matter of fact, it was more of a turnout than they were expecting. The state showed up to get a red representative, a senator. However, Atlanta said, no, not today. We're going to give you Warlock. It's not fair.
Actually, it is fair. It is 100% fair. That's how elections work. I can piss and moan and get angry about the fact that we have Marjorie Taylor Greene as a representative, but she was fairly and duly elected. Well, fairly and duly elected insofar as after gerrymandering has already been done, she is now elected. But she is still a representative here. And he gets angry at us having potentially a blue Senate and a blue House, but we don't have a blue House. Most of the representatives for Georgia are Republican, and the United States itself has a House that is leaning more red than blue. But it's not enough for him. He's angry and he wants the 17th Amendment taken away. He wants the thing that made our senators what they are taken away, because he's mad that democracy exists. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. He's got more words to say about democracy.
The founders came from England, of course. They had the House of Lords. I didn't know till this week that the House of Lords is an unelected body.
Wait a minute, you didn't know that lords were unelected? My guy, how do you not know that? Did you know that we also used to have a House of Lords here? You know what the House of Lords was? It's the Senate. Our original setup was we had the lower house and the upper house. The lower house was comprised of the working class. That was our House of Representatives. And then the upper house, or the House of Lords, basically, was the Senate. And they were basically picked by the electorate. Nobody voted for them. Not a damn person.
It's not elected by the people. They are chosen by the House of Commons and the monarchy and others that they look for in the House of Lords, experts in business and finance and medical fields, and people that can contribute to the governance of a nation, people with experience. And so our Senate is supposed to be modeled after the House of Lords, and it's a totally unelected body. And we must return, in my opinion, if we don't, here's the deal. If we don't return and repeal the 17th Amendment, and we've repealed the 18th Amendment, so I don't know why we couldn't repeal the 17th Amendment. If we don't do this in purple states or even states that are not completely red, I just don't see how we ever take the Senate back, ever, because we cannot fight those population centers.
So, you know how you fight those population centers? It's very simple. I can actually explain it to you, Shane. It doesn't take you reading an entire civics book to understand, though Jake 3D would have you locked in a room reading a civics book, or at least having it read to you, because God knows you can't fucking read. But my solution would be Sylvia Silica making me say ara ara. My secondary solution would be for you to understand that most people, they vote on color. Not the color of the person, whether they're black or white. No, they vote based on what their team is. They say, oh my God, I am a Democrat. I believe in Democrat things. I vote for a Democrat. Here's how you get the shit done that you want, whilst also playing by the rules, as opposed to flipping the table when things don't go your way. It's very simple. You find a policy that a Democrat will take that you want. Very simple. It's very simple. In fact, actually, this is the mainstay of how people like Joe Manchin have made a name for themselves. They agree with most Republican policy awkwardly, and then, run as Democrat and keep running as Democrat. It's very weird to me. But it's a thing you can do. You get a Democrat that is willing to see eye to eye to you on Republican policy. By focusing more on policy and less on the word liberal and the word conservative, you might actually be able to get something done. Because if you focus on policy and then feed that policy through an actual rep, or, a senator, convince the senator to do it, by doing so, you change the color of any given bill, but you don't change the content of that bill. It is more likely, if you've got a proposition that you want thrown through, and there happen to be more Democrats in the Senate than there are Republicans, it's more likely to get through if you have it proposed by a Democrat. Now, you have your representatives doing the things you want them to do, irrespective of whether or not you have the right representative in who's colored the way that you prefer. Now, I know that the idea that there actually was a way this whole time for him to get the things he wanted without playing party politics all the time, super weird to him. Weird concept, I know. But most people are not focused on policy. Most people are focused on party. So if you focus on policy through the lens of party, you can get some shit done. But if you constantly focus on party the same way everybody else does, then you're going to be just as disappointed as everybody else when it runs the same damn way every single time for you. That said, though, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. That's all we have for Shane Vaughn. He's got some opinions, as we saw, and I've given my responses to those here. But I want to know what yours are. Comment section is a great place to let me know all of that. With that all said, thank you for watching. I appreciate your view. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everyone, insert end video tagline here.